In March 1968, a phone rang in the Soviet embassy in Havana, right in the office of Alexander Alexeyev. On the line was Raúl Castro, brother of Cuba's leader and then Minister of Defense. Raúl asked Alexeyev for help with an extraordinary incident near the village of Chivirico, located in the mountains of southern Cuba. Raúl explained that a strange black disc-shaped object had crashed in the mountains. Cuban authorities had no idea what it was and suspected it might be a new invention from the United States. Raúl Castro stated that he wanted to involve Soviet military scientists to study the object and help transport it to Havana. Alexeyev replied that he would need to contact Moscow for further instructions. He called his friend Ardalion Malygin, the deputy chairman of the KGB, and relayed the details of the incident. Malygin informed him that he needed some time to clarify the matter and asked Alexeyev to call back in 24 hours. The next day, Malygin called Alexeyev and reported that a Soviet aircraft carrying a team of scientists would land in Havana on March 29th. The operation would be led by Sergei Grigorievich Orakov, head of the Bagration Military Technical School of the KGB, who had experience studying extraterrestrial objects in the USSR. Orakov met with Alexeyev and a Cuban general at the embassy to plan the details. On April 2nd, they traveled to Chivirico, where Cuban soldiers with equipment were already waiting for them. An hour later, the team headed into the mountains, the crash site of the unidentified object, UFO. Upon arrival, Orakov immediately recognized the significance of the object, but refrained from sharing his conclusions with the Cuban military. Instead, he claimed it might be a new American reconnaissance aircraft and ordered preparations for its transportation. However, the task proved extremely challenging. The UFO had crashed in a remote mountainous area surrounded by dense jungle, making it nearly impossible to move such a large and heavy object. Cuban soldiers spent 10 grueling days lowering the object to the village, where heavy equipment awaited to transport it to Havana. Finally, the UFO was brought to a secure hangar for further study. On April 21st, a call from Moscow reached the Soviet embassy in Havana. The directive was clear. Orakov was to transport the object to Havana's port, load it onto a military ship, and send it to the USSR. Orakov informed the Cuban general of the plan, but the general reported this to Raúl Castro, who categorically refused to allow the object to leave Cuba. Castro and Orakov met at the Soviet embassy, where Orakov explained that the object needed to be studied in the USSR for thorough analysis. Castro, however, stood firm in his refusal. Orakov reported the impasse to his superiors, who instructed him to wait a few more days. He stayed in Havana for about 2 weeks, occasionally visiting the hangar to study the object. Orakov described the material as resembling titanium, but clearly made from an unknown extraterrestrial substance. Unfortunately, the specifics of the experiments conducted on the object remain unknown. In May, Alexeyev summoned Orakov to his office and handed him the phone. On the line was Malygin, who informed him of a plan to covertly extract the object and send it to the USSR. A special unit would arrive in Havana within a few days to execute the operation. On May 27th, a Soviet aircraft landed in Havana, carrying a military team led by Officer Artem Pogosov. Artem asked Alexeyev for assistance in bribing the guards at the hangar where the UFO was kept. However, Alexeyev discovered that the guards were fiercely loyal to the regime, making bribery nearly impossible. Pogosov then proposed Plan B. The team would disguise themselves as American military personnel to carry out the operation. On the night of June 5th, a 15-man team set out on the mission in a truck. They were dressed in American military uniforms, and a Soviet soldier drove the vehicle with perfectly forged documents to avoid suspicion. The truck was stopped by Cuban police along the way, but the driver's papers were in order, and the team continued without issue. Upon reaching the hangar, they neutralized 4 guards, communicating in English to maintain their cover as Americans. Inside the hangar, they found 3 more guards who were forced to surrender their weapons. The guards were handcuffed, placed in the truck, and locked inside. The team then brought in a large trailer parked nearby and carefully loaded the UFO onto it. The entire operation went off without casualties. In the end, the object was secretly transported to the port and successfully sent to the USSR. By morning, an alarm was raised and Cuban soldiers rushed to the hangar, but the UFO was already gone. Raúl Castro immediately called the embassy and reported that the Americans had stolen the object, completely unaware that it had been taken by Soviet soldiers. Orikov also went to the hangar, pretending to know nothing about what had happened. A few hours later, the trailer was found near a garbage dump on the outskirts of Havana, but it had been completely burned. According to rumors, Fidel Castro himself was furious about the incident and sent some of the guards to prison. Orikov and his team returned to the Soviet Union, where they were awarded medals for bravery. If the Cuban authorities see this video, they'll finally learn how the Soviet government tricked them. I hope they'll thank me. Thank you. Don't forget to like and subscribe so this video appears in recommendations and the Cubans can see it. I'm waiting for their gratitude.